Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Further, to continue with the deciphering of the book of Genesis and my previous videos, Origin of the Universe and the Milky Way Galaxy, Cause of the World War, today let us understand the history of the Sun, particularly the events happened after the origin of the Sun as depicted in the book of Genesis. As I have mentioned in one of my previous presentation, 12 planets in the solar system, the prophet Jacob represents the sun and his sons represent the planets. The life history of prophet Jacob represents the history of sun. First, let me show you an interesting thing. As we all know, this is a photograph of sun, but if you carefully observe, you can see an image of Jacob in the sun as shown in this slide. The lone creator of the universe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has created the images of prophets in the planets, stars, nebula and galaxies as he has promised to show his signs as mentioned in the Quran, Surah number 27, verse number 93. Before we dig into the life history of Jacob, first let us understand few facts about the sun. The sun is the nearest star to the earth and is at the center of the solar system. It is estimated that the sun has formed approximately 4.6 billion years ago. The sun lies about 27,000 light years away from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. It is located in the Orion Cygnus arm. It rotates around the center of the galaxy at about 220 kilometers per second and completes one revolution in 240 million years. Like sun, many stars are visible in the night sky, forming constellations. A constellation is an area on the celestial sphere in which a group of visible stars forms a perceived pattern or outline, typically representing an animal, mythological subject, or inanimate object. According to the International Astronomical Union (IAU), presently there are 88 constellations. In addition, a group of stars belonging to the same constellation or neighboring constellations may create a pattern called asterism. With the knowledge bestowed on me by the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let me unravel few important events happened in the life history of the sun with the help of scriptures. In the book of Genesis, the chapter number 26 and onwards explains the story of Jacob. But in this presentation, we will discuss the events occurred between the chapter 27 and 35, which covers the travel history of Jacob. The events related to his birth shall be discussed in one of the future presentations, inshallah. First, let me briefly explain the travel history of Jacob for the benefit of those who are not aware of this story. On the advice of his parents Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob left Beersheba and went to his uncle Laban's home at Paddan Aram. There, he served his uncle for 14 years to marry his daughters Leah and Rachel. His wives gave him their servants Zilpah and Bilhah to get their progeny through them. After serving for another 6 years, totaling to 20 years, Jacob left his uncle's home in Paddan Aram and returned to his parents at Hebron. By this time, he had acquired large number of animal herds, 4 wives and 11 sons and a daughter at Paddan Aram. During his journey, his uncle Laban chased him and finally made a treaty at the hill country of Gilead, as Jacob had left Laban's place without informing him. On his further journey, Jacob met angels at Mahanaim. Later, Jacob wrestled with a man at Peniel, where his name was changed to Israel. On his further journey, Jacob met his brother Esau, who came from Seir. Later, Jacob continued his journey and reached Succoth and then Shechem, where he purchased a piece of land and pitched his tent. Then the God ordered Jacob to move to Bethel, where he built an altar to the God. On further journey, Rachel died on the way to Ephrath while giving birth to Benjamin, who is the 12th son of Jacob. Finally, Jacob came back to his father Isaac at Hebron and settled there. Now, the question is, where are these places in the visible sky? With the knowledge bestowed on me by the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I recognize few places in the visible sky, and to recognize more places, I need the help of science scholars as it requires more data. Therefore, I request the science scholars to join hands with me to recognize them. With the help of constellation map, geographical maps and travel history maps of the prophet Jacob, we can identify these places. To identify these places, first we have to understand the characteristics of these places and decipher the information of the scriptures rationally. Moreover, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the constellations, asterism and nebula in the galaxy to exactly match the prescribed details of the scriptures. Now, let us take the help of constellation map and an online interactive planetarium platform like the Sky to identify these places. According to the book of Genesis, chapter number 28, verse number 1 to 5, Rebekah and Isaac, the parents of Jacob, have ordered Jacob to leave Beersheba and go to his uncle Laban's home at Paddan Aram and marry his daughter. The question is where the Beersheba is. As I have shown in my previous presentation, the Milky Way galaxy, cause of the World War, the NGC 1023 group is the land of Canaan, which is located in the constellation Perseus. Now, let us check the Perseus constellation and connect the stars with a line. On careful observation and reconnecting the stars properly, it creates an image that appears as if a person is running away from a viewer holding a stick. It is the Jacob who is running away from his home as there is a threat for his life from his elder brother Esau, as mentioned in the chapter number 27, verse number 41 to 45. According to the chapter number 32, verse number 10, while praying to the God, Jacob mentions that with only my walking stick, I crossed the Jordan. The constellation Bootes is the Jordan, and as you can see in this picture, here also Jacob is holding a stick. These statements suggest that the alignment of three stars has dragged away the sun from its position in the constellation Perseus till it crosses the Bootes constellation. As mentioned in the chapter number 28, verse number 10 to 13, after fleeing from his house, Jacob reached a place where he took a stone as a pillow and slept over there as the sun has gone down. There he dreamt that a stairway was erected on the earth whose top was reaching to the heavens, and the angels were going up and coming down on it, and the God was standing at the top. The trail of the Milky Way galaxy is the stairway, and the stars present in the constellation Gemini are the angels, as you can see in this picture. And the name of the place is Mahanaim, as mentioned in the chapter number 32, verse number 2. As shown in this picture, one can see an image of angels in the trail of the Milky Way galaxy as well. This is the picture of Jellyfish Nebula in the constellation Gemini, representing an angel. To commemorate this event, the God made the ancient Egypt people, who could be the contemporary of Jacob, to use stone headrest as pillow. According to the chapter number 28, verse number 18 and 19, early in the morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed near his head and set it up as a sacred stone and called that place Bethel. The chapter number 35, verse number 6 to 7 and 14 to 15 states that during his return journey, Jacob built an altar and set up a sacred stone pillar at Bethel and named it El Bethel. From all these information, we can confirm that the constellation Ariga is the Bethel, where we can see an altar and a stone erected next to it, as you can see in this picture. The IC 405 Flaming Star Nebula present in the constellation Ariga also resembles an altar and an erected stone. This place is the gateway of the heaven, as mentioned in the chapter number 28, verse number 17. At this place, God spoke to Jacob and blessed him. Then the question is where the image of God exists in the sky. As it is mentioned in the verse number 12 and 13, the God was standing at the top of the stairway. This indicates that we have to look at the top of the Milky Way trail. Let us search in the constellation Centaurus and adjoining area which is at the top of this trail. Wait a minute. There is a question mark. Why does a question mark present in the sky? What does it represent or indicate? If we slightly rotate the image and join these stars of constellation Crux, we get an image of a dome or a pyramid. This is the house of God. This is the reason why the top of the religious worshipping places are built either as dome or as pyramid. You can also see an image of a pyramid in the Crux Nebula as shown in this picture. This indicates that the constellation Crux is the house of God, or the house of God is present in this direction. If this is the house of God, then where is the God? Let us join the stars present next to it and see what we get. Allahu Akbar. This is the image of God. La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. As I have mentioned in my previous presentation, the name Ishwar, Bhagwan, Yahweh, God, Allah are all different names of the lone creator of the universe. Therefore, I request everyone to shun the other gods and worship Allah alone. Some of you may question why I am using the name Allah when the lone creator of the universe is having so many different names. The real name of the lone creator of the universe is Allah, and He has revealed this name to only two prophets. As I have mentioned in one of my previous presentation, Prophet Shiva is the first and the Prophet Muhammad is the last who brought the name Allah to this world. In between, he has introduced himself with different names or synonyms. You can call him by any name as it is mentioned in Quran chapter 17 verse number 110, but preferably Allah. Before we move further, let me tell you one important fact related to this place. As a human enactment, the Prophet Jacob put a pillar and built an altar in Jerusalem on the earth. In the present day, it is called the Dome of Rock and Masjid al-Aqsa respectively. This is the gateway to the heaven and the earth for humans. The Prophet Jacob is the first person who built an altar of God at this place. This is the reason why the Prophet Muhammad ascended to the heaven from Masjid al-Aqsa on his journey to heaven, which is called Al-Isra wal-Miraj. This place belongs to every human being. Therefore, I request the concerned authorities to provide access to all without any discrimination. There should be no restriction to anyone to visit this place. It belongs to everyone. A set of people are talking about building of a third temple at this place by demolishing existing structures. There is no need to demolish any of the existing structures as the entire premises is a holy place, as the entire surroundings of the Al-Aqsa Mosque is blessed by the God as mentioned in Quran chapter number 17 verse number 1. Therefore, a third temple can be built without demolishing any of the existing structures. But whose temple would it be? It should be the temple of Yahweh, who is none other than the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The chapter number 29 and 30 explains the details of Jacob's life in Paddan Aram. From Bethel, Jacob moved to Paddan Aram through Jordan. There, Jacob saw a well in the field with 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it, and the shepherds were waiting to water the sheep when all the flocks were gathered, as mentioned in the chapter number 29, verse number 1 to 3. On inquiring, the shepherds told Jacob that they are from Haran and they are waiting for all the flocks to be gathered near the well so that they can water them. They also showed Rachel, the daughter of Laban, who was coming with her sheep. On careful observation, we can notice shepherds and a well where 3 flocks of sheep are lying in the constellation of Pegasus, as you can see in this picture. The constellation Pegasus is in the west in the constellation map, but the Paddan Aram is in the east, as mentioned in the chapter number 29, verse number 1. While speaking with the shepherds, Jacob said to the shepherds that since it is still middle of the day, let the sheep to graze some more after watering them. This indicates that the constellation Pegasus should be at the center, as it is said that it is the middle of the day. Moreover, Jacob camped at Bethel when the sun had gone down, as mentioned in the chapter number 28, verse number 11, indicating it was 6 p.m. If we cut the existing constellation map and rearrange according to the descriptions of the scriptures, it exactly matches with the details of the scriptures. Now you can see the constellation Pegasus and Ariga at 12 and 18 hours respectively. Therefore, I request the IAU to restructure the existing constellation map according to the details provided by the creator of the universe. Now, let us search Rachel, who arrived to the well to water her sheep, as mentioned in the verse number 9. To identify Rachel, we have to take the help of verse number 16 and 17, where it is mentioned that Rachel had a lovely figure and beautiful appearance. On searching carefully in the adjacent areas of Pegasus, we can get the image of Rachel and her sheep in the constellation Cetus, which exactly matches with the descriptions of the scriptures, as you can see in this picture. Jacob rolled off a stone which was covering the well to water the sheep, as mentioned in the verse number 10. Here in this picture you can see Jacob pouring water into a water tank, where the constellation Aquarius represents Jacob and Pisces Astrinus represent a water tank. The Helix Nebula could represent the vessel Jacob used to draw water from the well, and the cometary knots present in this nebula may represent the water droplets falling from the vessel. The action of rolling off and on of the stone over the well is the reason for the pulsation in the stars of Pegasus constellation. Recent scientific studies report that many stars are gathering in the constellation of Andromeda. This indicates that there will be a perturbation in the stars present in the constellation of Pegasus in near future, and plasma or water could be distributed among these gathered stars, as it is stated that when all the flocks are gathered there, the shepherds would roll off the stone and water the sheep, as mentioned in the chapter number 29, verse number 3. The action of Jacob kissing Rachel and Laban rushing out to meet Jacob and then taking him to his house, as mentioned in the verse number 11 to 13, indicate that there was an interaction between these stars, and finally the star representing Laban was captured the sun and brought it to its house at constellation Cetus and held it captive for some time. The chapter number 29, verse number 15 to 35 mentions the marriage of Jacob, and chapter number 31, verse number 1 to 24 mentions about the family of Jacob. The story of Jacob's marriage and birth of his children is related to the formation of the solar system. After serving for 14 years for Laban, Jacob married Laban's daughters Leah and Rachel. During the marriage, Laban gave Zilpah and Bilhah as servants to Leah and Rachel respectively. Later, Leah and Rachel gave their servants to Jacob to have progeny through them as well. This indicates that in total, Jacob had 4 wives. All these 4 women gave birth to 12 sons and a daughter in Paddan Aram. The sons of Jacob represent planets, as I have shown in my previous presentation, 12 planets in the solar system. The Creator Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is informing us the creation of the solar system through this story. If we rationally analyze this, we can understand that the Sun had captured 2 double stars which are undergoing a type of 1A or 1AX small-scale explosion, so have formed 4 nebular masses around the Sun. Later, 12 planets were formed from these 4 nebular masses. This type of small-scale secondary supernova are compared with the pregnancy and labor of a female, and the stars which are responsible for the formation of the planets are mentioned as female stars in the scriptures. In science, they are known as neutron stars. The rationale behind identifying neutron stars as the female stars is, as I have already shown in my previous presentation, Origin of the Universe, that the neutrons are referred as women in the scriptures. According to the chapter number 35, verse number 23 to 26, Leah gave birth to 6 sons and a daughter. Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah gave birth to 2 sons each, totaling to 12 sons and a daughter, marking the origin of the planets and the solar system. The names of the Jacob's children and corresponding planets, as shown in the slide, are formed from these 4 nebular masses. This is the order of the formation of the planets as shown in this slide. The Earth is in the 8th position in the order of formation of the planets. To keep this video short, I am skipping the details which shall be discussed in one of the future presentations, inshallah. The verse number 25 to 43 of chapter number 30 explains about the acquiring of flax at Laban's place. This is all about formation and acquiring of asteroids, where asteroids are mentioned as sheep and goats, as I have already mentioned in my previous presentation. After Jacob agreed to work for 6 more years, Laban separated the speckled or spotted and dark colored sheep and goats from his herd and put them in his son's care. As you can see in this picture, the constellation Cephus and Cassiopeia represent the tent of Laban's sons and speckled or spotted sheep respectively. Jacob took his flocks, which are not speckled or spotted sheep and goat, to a place that separates him from Laban's sons by 3 days' journey. Here, Jacob made white streaks in branches of poplar, almond, and plane tree by peeling them and keep them in the watering trough where the flocks came to drink. This is the image of either almond or plane tree formed by joining the stars of constellation Cygnus, Vulpecula, and Delphinus. The constellation Cygnus also forms an image of Jacob, as you can see in this picture. This is the plain where Jacob had camped, which is 3 days far from the Laban's sons. The 3 days separation between Jacob and Laban's sons indicate that the distance between the constellation Cygnus and Cassiopeia Cephus should be 3 hours difference on the constellation map, as you can see in this picture. Jacob set up the peeled branches in front of the flocks when they were in heat. When the sheep mated in front of the branches, they gave birth to young ones that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Here, in this picture, you can see the sheep mating in front of the peeled branches. Jacob made 2 separate groups by removing all the streaked, speckled and spotted sheep from others. You can see 2 separate camps of sheep in this picture. In this picture, you can see a sheep with streaked or spots. This is how Jacob made separate flocks for himself from Laban's flocks and become extremely prosperous. This is how Jacob owned large flocks of sheep, camel, and donkey, where sheep, camel, and donkeys represent the asteroids, as you can see in this picture. This part of the story suggests the way how the asteroids have formed and how the sun acquired them in the constellation of Cygnus. The nuclei for the formation of asteroids were formed from the star representing Laban, and then it was taken away by the sun to constellation Cygnus. There, sun developed them into fully formed asteroids by contributing its compositional elements along with the stars from Cygnus. I request the scientists to join hands with me to discuss the scientific details, as those details are beyond the scope of this presentation. After obtaining the flocks on the order of God, Jacob left Laban's house as mentioned in the chapter number 31, verse number 1 to 16. The verse number 4 states that Jacob summoned to his family to come to the field where his flocks were grazing. Then he immediately put his family on the camels and also gathered all his belongings, including flocks, that he had accumulated in the land of Paddan Aram, and left for Canaan to return to his father Isaac. These details indicate that the sun has gathered all his planets, stars representing his wives, asteroids, and other nebular masses when it was in the constellation of Cygnus and left that place. Here, a camel with a saddle tied on it represents the stars of constellation Ursa Major, as you can see in this picture. This indicates that the stars of Ursa Major have dragged the sun from the clutches of the star representing Laban and took it away from there. The verse number 21 and 25 indicate that Jacob had camped in the hill country of Gilead after crossing the Euphrates River. The constellation Lynx represent the Euphrates River. After crossing the constellation Lynx, the sun camped in the constellation of Ophiuchus, where the constellation Ophiuchus is the hill country of Gilead. Laban, along with his relatives, pursued Jacob and overtook him after 10 days and set up camp near the Jacob's camp as mentioned in the verse number 22 to 25. This indicates that the star representing Laban overtook and stayed close to the sun in the constellation Ophiuchus. Here, in this picture, you can see the tents of Jacob and Laban representing the constellation Ophiuchus and serpents respectively. If Jacob represents the sun, which star represents Laban? Laban is older than Jacob, and when Jacob left Paddan Aram, Laban was angry, which was reflecting on his face as mentioned in the verse number 1 to 2. This indicates that the star representing Laban should be older than sun and it should be red in color, where the redness on the face due to anger represents the red color of the star. Also, it had encountered with the sun in the constellation of Ophiuchus and returned towards his home. All these details indicate that the runaway red dwarf Barnard star represents the Laban. The 10.01 billion year old red dwarf Barnard star is a runaway star which is the fourth nearest star to the sun, situated in the constellation Ophiuchus. The other older red stars in the neighborhood of Barnard's star are his relatives who came along with him from Paddan Aram. According to the verse number 26 to 30, after inquiring the reason for leaving Haran without informing him, Laban asked Jacob why he stole his gods. According to the verse number 19, Rachel stole the household idols of Laban while leaving the Paddan Aram, but Jacob was unaware of this. According to the verse number 32, Jacob asked Laban to search his and his family members' tents and take away his gods if they are found. Then, which is the Laban's god? To know this, we have to go through the subsequent verses. According to the verse number 33 to 35, Laban searched Jacob's tent and tents of his wives but did not find them, as Rachel had hid it inside the camel's saddle and sat on it. Let us identify the tents of Jacob's wives first. As you can see in this picture, the constellation Draco represents the tents of Jacob's wives. It is mentioned that Rachel hid the idols in the camel's saddle and sat on it. Here, in the Rachel's tent, you can see a saddle representing the constellation Ursa Minor, as you can see in this picture. To identify the Laban's gods, we have to compare this saddle with the saddle tied on the camel. The saddle present on the camel is having 2 segments, whereas the saddle present in the Rachel's tent is having 3 segments. This indicates that the star representing the extra segment of the saddle is the god of Laban. This indicates that the star Polaris is the god of Laban. This indicates that the people of East during Laban's period were worshipping different god than Allah. This is the reason why the people of East worshipping different gods than the Allah till today. Therefore, I request the people of the East to shun all other gods and start worshipping the lone creator of the universe alone, whose name is Ishwar, Bhagwan, Yahweh, God and Allah. When Laban could not find his God in the Jacob and his family's tent, Jacob demanded an explanation from Laban for chasing him in hot pursuit as mentioned in the verse number 36 to 37. To settle the matter, Laban proposed to make a peace agreement as mentioned in the verse number 44. In response to this, Jacob set up a stone as memorial pillar and asked his relatives to make a pile of stones around it as mentioned in the verse number 45 to 46. Here, Jacob and Laban made a formal peace agreement and promised each other that they will not cross this pile of stones and pillar to harm each other as mentioned in the verse number 51 to 53. Later, Jacob sacrificed a sheep and they ate the meal near the pile of the stones and spent the night on the mountain as mentioned in the verse number 46 and 54. According to the verse number 55, early in the morning, Laban left that place to return to his place. Here, in this picture, you can see a pillar and pile of stones near the tent of Jacob and a sacrificed sheep representing the constellation Ophiuchus and Capricornus respectively. Similarly, you can see an image of sheep in a nebula and a pillar surrounded by pile of stones formed by Rho Ophiuchi nebula, where the stars around this pillar represents the stones. All these details suggest that the Barnard star came from the constellation Cetus and encountered the Sun in the constellation of Ophiuchus, and they piled up the stony asteroid and comets in that constellation beyond the Oort cloud. This pile of asteroid and comets are the limit of approach for both Sun and the Barnard star in future as well. The act of eating meals near the pile of stones indicate that there the Sun has sacrificed an asteroid or a nebula at that place and its matter was shared by all. According to the verse number 47, Laban called the feast as Agar Sahaduta and Jacob called it Galid. In Aramaic, the meaning of Agar Sahaduta is witness pile, whereas in Kannada, which is one of the Dravidian language, Saha means together and Uta means meals, which means it is a meals of togetherness. Similarly, according to the Rakta dictionary, Galna means conversation or talk, and in Aramaic language, Galal means heap and witness, and Ed means festival, which means it is a festival of talks or heap or witness. This indicates that at the time of Laban, the people of East were speaking the Dravidian language and the people of West were speaking the Aramaic or Western Semitic language. This also indicates that Laban could be a Dravidian from Indus Valley civilization. After the departure of Laban, Jacob went on his way, and angels of God met him during his journey, as mentioned in the chapter number 32, verse number 1 and 2. This indicates that the sun has reached the constellation of Gemini after leaving Ophiuchus. From here, Jacob sent the messengers to his brother Esau, who was in the land of Seir. The messengers returned to Jacob and said, Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men, as mentioned in the verse number 3 to 6. This indicates that the sun had sent the storms of electrons, which represent the messengers, to the star representing Esau, and they returned to the sun later. Before understanding which star and constellation represents the Esau and Seir, let us understand few more events occurred at this place. According to the verse number 7 and 8, Jacob was afraid and divided his people as well as his possessions into two camps, thinking if Esau attacks one camp, then the other camp will be able to escape. The verse number 13 to 21 states that to appease his brother, Jacob sent goats, sheep, camels, cattle, and donkeys to Esau as gift, which was divided into 3 herds led by his servants so that his brother will accept him. This indicates that the planets, asteroids, and other nebular masses were aligned into 2 different segments, as you can see in this picture. The constellation Taurus represents this arrangement. Here in this picture, you can see the 11 planets aligned into 2 strands led by the Sun and the 3 herds positioned ahead of him. This also suggests that whatever matter was present in the 4 nebular masses was segregated into 2 different segments, and this is the beginning of the ordering of the solar system. Later, during the night, Jacob took his family and all his possessions and quickly crossed the stream at ford of Jabbok, as mentioned in the verse number 22 to 23. The constellation Aries represents the stream of Jabbok, as you can see in this picture. The act of sending the family ahead of him indicates that it is the initiation of the movement of the planets and asteroids. At this place, Jacob wrestled with a man until dawn, and the man struck the socket of Jacob's hip, which caused the dislocation of his hip, as mentioned in the verse number 24 and 25. The constellation Hercules represent the Jacob with his dislocated hip, and the name of this place is Peniel, as mentioned in the verse number 30. The verse number 31 states that Jacob was limping because of his dislocated hip. In this picture, we can see an image that appears as if a man is limping. As we all know, when a man limps, his body tilts to a side. Therefore, it indicates that the sun's axis was tilted when it was in the constellation of Hercules, which is figuratively mentioned as limping. The scientists have estimated that the sun's axis is tilted by 7.25 degree to the plane of ecliptic and by 67.23 degree to the galactic plane. The verse number 28 states that Jacob fought with God and men and has prevailed. In the verse number 30, Jacob mentions that certainly I have seen God face to face. This indicates that at this time the portion of the Milky Way galaxy where the sun was positioned was facing towards the Great Attractor, where the Great Attractor is figuratively mentioned as God, as I have shown in my previous presentation, Milky Way galaxy, cause of the World War. The combined gravitational pull exerted by a star and the Great Attractor has caused the tilt of the sun's axis, and the sun succeeded in escaping this gravity. According to the verse number 28, the man changed the Jacob's name to Israel, where Israel means solar system, as by this time the solar system has started functioning in true sense. The mentioning of dawn in the verse number 24 and 26 indicates that the constellation Hercules is positioned at 6 hours, and it confirms that the modified constellation map is correct. The chapter number 33 mentions the details of meeting of Jacob with Esau. To understand these details, first we have to know who Esau is. Esau and Jacob are twin brothers, and Esau stays in the land of Seir, as mentioned in the chapter number 25, verse number 24, and chapter number 32, verse number 3, and chapter number 36, verse number 8. Then the question is, where Seir is located in the sky? To know this, first we have to know Esau's personal details. Esau married 3 women, out of whom 2 are from Canaan and 1 is from Havilah, who is the daughter of Ishmael. Then, where is Havilah? The chapter number 25, verse number 18 mentions that the descendants of Ishmael settled from Havilah to Shur in Ashur, which runs next to Egypt. Then, where is Egypt? As I have already mentioned in my previous presentation, Milky Way galaxy, cause of the World War, that the Dorado, Fornax and Eridanus clusters represent the pyramid in the universe, then there should be 3 stars in the Milky Way galaxy which represent the pyramids. On careful observation, we can identify the Sphinx in the constellation Eridanus, as you can see in this picture. As we all know, in Egypt, pyramids are located just behind the Sphinx. This indicates that the 3 stars aligned just behind the constellation Eridanus represent the pyramids within the Milky Way galaxy, where the constellation Orion represents the Egypt. As I have shown in the previous presentation, the intersection of the median line drawn on the adjacent pyramids makes an acute angle. Similarly, the intersection of the median line drawn on these 3 stars also makes an acute angle. All these details confirm that the constellation Orion is Egypt. This is the reason why the Creator Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has made the people of Egypt to build 3 pyramids and a sphinx as a human enactment so that we can identify the constellations. As already mentioned, Havilah is next to Egypt. This indicates that the constellation Canis Major, Puppis, Pyxis, Vela and Carina represents the Havilah and Shur, which are next to Orion. Esau married 3 females and 1 among them is from Havilah. This indicates that the seer should be near to Havilah. We have also seen an arrangement of Jacob's family as seen in this picture. Similar to this arrangement, there is an arrangement of stars in the constellation Monoceros, and the impression carved out by joining the stars of constellation Hydra resembles the hill topography. This confirms that the constellation Hydra is the hill country of Seir. Then which star of Monoceros represent Isa? According to the chapter number 25, verse number 25 and chapter number 27, verse number 11, Isa is red in color and is a hairy man. The chapter number 25, verse number 27 states that Isa is a skilled hunter and a man of open fields. This indicates that the Shul star, which is a runaway red dwarf star located in the constellation Monoceros, represents Isa. Scientists have estimated the age of the Shul star to be between 3 and 10 billion years. But the scriptures mention that the sun and the Shul star are of the same age as they are twins, and Jacob came out of womb with his hand clutching Esau's heel as mentioned in the chapter number 25, verse number 26. This confirms that the age of the Shul star is 4.6 billion years. Now, let us see the details of meeting of Jacob with his brother Esau. According to the chapter number 33, verse number 1 to 3, on seeing Esau coming towards him, Jacob divided his family into 4 groups. He put the servants, that is Bilhah and Zilpah, and their children in front, Leah and her children behind them, and finally Rachel and Joseph behind them. Jacob went ahead of all of them. As you can see in this picture, Jacob is at the front, followed by his family, and 3 groups of gifts sent to Esau are put ahead of Jacob. Here, the Bilhah and her sons were put first, then Zilpah and her sons, followed by the Leah and her sons, and finally Rachel and Joseph. The details of the sons of Jacob and respective planets are shown in this slide. This indicates that at this time the solar system is properly organized, which matches with the present day arrangement of the planets in the solar system. All these information indicate that the planets were born from 4 nebulae and later are organized into a solar system that matches the present arrangement of the solar system. The verse number 3 states that when Jacob approached Esau, he bowed towards the ground 7 times. This indicates that the sun had shifted its path 7 times during the interaction of the Shul star, as it was coming with 400 other stars, as it is stated in the verse number 1. This indicates that the force of Shul star and 400 stars behind it is responsible for the shifting of the course of the sun. But Shul star has speedily approached the sun and passed through the Ood cloud, as it is mentioned in the verse number 4, where the Ood cloud is mentioned as the neck of the Jacob. The scientists have estimated that the Shul star had passed through the Ood cloud about 70,000 years ago. The verse number 5 to 7 states that after Jacob bowed down towards the ground, his family came forward and bowed down in the order mentioned earlier. This indicates that at the time of interaction with the Shul star, the sun and its planets have changed its course and escaped from the incoming Shul star's gravitational pull. The verse number 8 to 11 indicates that during the interaction with the Shul star, few asteroids were taken away by the Shul star as a gift from the sun. This also suggests that there may be 3 bands of asteroids present ahead of the sun which are not visible to us. The verse number 14 states that, "Let my Lord go on ahead of his servant. I will travel more slowly at the pace of the herds and the children until I come to my Lord at Seir." This indicates that the sun will meet Shul star again when it goes to the constellation Hydra. According to the verse number 16 to 19, after the departure of Shul star, the sun had camped near the city of Shechem. There, Jacob purchased the portion of the field where he had pitched his tent, as stated in the verse number 19. This indicates that the sun had acquired portion of the constellation Andromeda, where the constellation Andromeda represents the Shechem. This is the reason why people of Israel purchased the land from the people of Palestine as a human enactment of this event. Since we have understood the real cause for the land transactions, It is time for both the governments to cease all the inhuman activities and live together with peace. Therefore, I request the Israel and Palestine governments to understand the wish of the Creator and coexist in this holy land in peace. According to the verse number 20, Jacob set up an altar at Shechem and declared that the God of Israel is the God, or the God is the God of Israel. To understand the reason behind this declaration, we have to understand the verses mentioned in chapter number 31, verse number 5, 29, 42, 53, and chapter number 32, verse number 9. According to these verses, whenever Jacob is mentioning about the God, he is referring the God as the God of Abraham and Isaac, the one whom Isaac fears, as shown in this slide. Moreover, while traveling to Haran, as mentioned in the chapter number 28, verse number 20 to 21, Jacob made a vow at Bethel, saying, "If God is with me and protects me on this journey I am taking, and gives me food to eat and clothing to wear, and I return safely to my father's home, then the Lord will become my God." This indicates that till now, Jacob was considering the God as the God because his ancestors were worshipping him. But now, Jacob himself has wholeheartedly accepted the God as his God after he returned safely to Canaan and had put firm belief in the God. This indicates that the God of entire solar system is only Allah, to whom sun fears and worship. Therefore, I request all the people of the world to accept and believe firmly in the lone creator of the universe, whose name is Ishwar, Bhagavan, Yahweh, God, and Allah, as we all are living in the solar system. The chapter number 34 mentions about two important events. One is related to the sexual assault of Jacob's daughter Dinah, and the second one is related to the destruction of Shechem. According to the verse number 1 to 12, when Dinah went to meet the young women of the land in Shechem, Shechem, the son of Hamor, on whose name the city is named Shechem, sexually assaulted Dinah and then wanted to marry her as he fell in love with her. According to the verse number 13 to 24, on a condition of circumcision of all the males of Shechem, Jacob's sons deceitfully agreed the offer of intermarriage among the Jacob's family and the Shechemites offered by Shechem and his father Hamor. This indicates that the star representing the Shechem has captured the Pallas, which represents Dinah. Later, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, took their swords and killed Hamor and his son Shechem and slaughtered every male, as mentioned in the verse number 25 to 26. They looted the city and took away their flocks, herds, donkeys, and also captured their wives and children, as mentioned in the verse number 27 to 29. This indicates that the planets Vesta and Ceres, with the help of stars of constellation Pisces, which represent the sword, has destroyed the stars representing Shechem and Hamor and also captured the asteroids and other nebular matter from the constellation Andromeda. This is the reason why presently in Palestine children are captured and properties of Palestinian people are destroyed by the Israelites as a human enactment of this event. Therefore, I request the Israel government to stop these inhuman activities immediately as we have understood the real cause behind the conflict. The prophet Jacob was unhappy and upset because of his son's action and said, "You have brought ruin on me by making me a foul odor among the inhabitants of the land," as mentioned in the verse number 30. Now, because of your inhuman activities, you are disgracing the prophet Jacob once again, and he is upset and unhappy for your actions. Therefore, stop all these inhuman activities immediately. This event also warns about the consequences of the sexual assault over a female. The one who sexually assaults a female will not only get death sentence in the present world, will also taste the torment of the hell forever in the afterlife, as the God has mentioned the rape, a crime that should not be committed, as mentioned in the verse number 7. Therefore, a request to those people who rape or having an intention to rape a female not to commit it, as it pushes you to the eternal hellfire of hell. Save yourself from the torment of the hellfire by not committing such a heinous crime. Here in this slide we can see an image of an aeroplane formed by joining the stars of constellation Andromeda and Pegasus. Oh my god, they are coming to attack us. This indicates that those Shechemites who survived the attack of Simeon and Levi had made an alliance with their neighbor and Dajjal and accruing the forces to attack Jacob and his family. This suggests that in future there will be a bombardment of meteors on the solar system from Andromeda galaxy, which represents the Dajjal. I will share more details about this Dajjal in one of the future presentations, inshallah. Later, God ordered Jacob to go to Bethel. Then Jacob told his household and all those who were with him to get rid of the foreign gods they possess and purify themselves and change their clothes as mentioned in the chapter number 35, verse number 1 to 3. On this, they gave all the foreign gods that were in their possession and the rings that were in their ears, which Jacob buried under the oak tree near Shechem as mentioned in the verse number 4. In this slide, you can see the ear ornaments and the foreign gods where the constellations Scorpius, Corona Australis and Telescopium represent the ear ornaments and the part of the Sagittarius represent the foreign gods. Jacob buried all these articles under the oak tree where oak tree may represent the constellation Cygnus and Delphinus. The action of changing clothes by the family members of Jacob represents that the outer layer of planets and the associated stars are changed or modified at this time. Similarly, even the surface layer of the sun also changed at this time. Now, let us understand few more details regarding the foreign gods. As we have understood earlier, the star present at the third segment of the camel's saddle is the god of Laban, which is Polaris. All this information suggests that the star representing Rachel has took away Polaris to a different place, and when it reached the constellation Scorpius, it released the Polaris. Later, the Polaris has migrated back to its current position in the constellation of Ursa Minor. As we have seen in the chapter number 31, verse number 34, Rachel hid the Laban's god in her tent. This indicates that the Polaris was positioned in the constellation Draco during this period. After this, Jacob and all those who were with him have arrived at Bethel as mentioned in the verse number 5 and 6. Here, once again God appeared to Jacob and changed his name from Jacob to Israel as mentioned in the verse number 9 and 10. This indicates that the solar system has fully functional by this time as it is a declaration by the God himself. The statement God went up from the place where he spoke with him as mentioned in the verse number 13 indicates that the great attractor which was nearer to the sun has moved far from that position. After building an altar of God at Bethel, Jacob and his family left Bethel to go to Hebron. When they were near to Ephrath, Rachel died while giving birth to Benjamin as mentioned in the verse number 16 to 19. Jacob buried her on the way to Ephrath and set up a marker over her grave which is present till today as mentioned in the verse number 19 and 20. The constellation Aquila is the marker and one of the neutron star or a black hole present in the constellation Aquila represent Rachel. It could be Aquila X1 and the Manati Nebula. There are many claimants for the Rachel's grave in Israel, but the grave that possesses this mark is the real grave of Rachel. Benjamin is the 12th son of Jacob representing the 12th planet Charon. These are the 12 sons of Jacob representing the 12 planets of solar system. More details about the 12 planets of the solar system are there in my previous presentation, 12 planets in the solar system. After this, Jacob came back to Hebron where his father Isaac was staying as mentioned in the verse number 27. The constellation Taurus represents the Hebron where Abraham, Isaac and Jacob stayed. This is the land the God promised to give to the Abraham and his descendants. As you can see in this slide, these are the regions of Canaan, Paddan Aram and Egypt. These are the countries or places in the constellation according to the scriptures, which are mentioned by different names as shown in this slide. All this information indicates that the Sun had started its journey from Perseus arm in the Milky Way galaxy, which is shown in red arrow mark in this picture, and then moved towards east. There it stayed for 365 million years and then again started its forward journey to come back to its present place in Orion Cygnus arm, which is also called local spur in the Milky Way galaxy. At the time of interaction with a Sool star, the Sun has changed its course and shifted to a new path shown in red color from the yellow colored path which could have occurred at the constellation Gemini. This journey is not a smooth path, instead a rough undulatory path as shown in this picture. All these information also shows that the modified constellation map is correct. Therefore, I request the IAU to restructure the existing constellation map as told by the creator of the universe himself and follow his instructions. All this information implies that the religion is not different than science and science is not different than religion. They go hand in hand and they are intertwined. In future videos, I will discuss more details about the solar system and story of Joseph, inshallah. To understand more scientific knowledge that is hidden in the scriptures and to get notification, please subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to share. I have identified some of the constellations, asterisms, nebula, and stars as per the descriptions of the scriptures. Also, I have identified some of the places in the constellation according to the descriptions provided in the scriptures, and to identify the remaining places, we need more data. Therefore, I request the science and religious scholars to join hands with me to identify the remaining constellations and spread the true knowledge of all the scriptures of the world with an authentic proof and in a right spirit. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.